Well, you seem like a person who's a lifelong learner, and I love that. I was never good in school, so once I was done, I was like, thank you. I am
No,
not going back.
yeah, I love learning just for the sake of learning.
Hi, I'm Missy.
And I'm Elizabeth. And today we're talking to Tonda Phelan on You Should Meet My Friend. She and I met as theater moms at our local high school. Both of her daughters and my son were involved in our high school theater. But as I got to know her through the theater, I got to know her on Facebook, as you do, and got to see some of her fabulous photography. And because of her, I got involved in a project called 52 Frames, which we'll probably talk about more later. I know she does extensive work with the Smithsonian. I know she is trained as a trapeze artist. And the most fascinating thing is that she has attended multiple times Burning Man, which is just not something you hear every day amongst the suburban moms community. I know that she's an incredibly giving and supportive person. She supports many causes and nonprofits around town, but also is incredibly authentic, which I've always found very fascinating and interesting. So I have so many questions. First off, thank you, Tonda, for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
Well, I Googled up because I knew you had done some work with the Smithsonian and found an article that they wrote that quoted you about Burning Man. And I remembered that in pre-COVID days, there was actually a Burning Man exhibition at
Renwick? Yes, at the
Renwick.
Renwick
Yeah.
Gallery.
Yep. And so they quoted you as somebody in the local area who's attended Burning Man. And in the article, it said you just came across it one day and decided to go check it out. Was it really that simple?
Well, it's a story I actually love to tell. It's one of my favorite me stories. I actually learned about Burning Man for the first time watching an episode of CBS Sunday Morning. I love that show. It's like, because it's very arts, it's very kind of non-grim news kind of news. So I've been a big fan of that for a very long time. They did a piece on the event, and specifically they spoke with this woman who calls herself the Countess, and she runs the census for Burning Man every year. That's what she does. She goes out. Everybody has kind of a role at Burning Man, and that's what she has done since she's been with the organization. And do a census every year, and they send out a survey, and everybody who comes responds to it. I was totally fascinated by this woman. I thought this was incredible, and she was talking about how Burning Man is this city that exists 1 week out of the year, and literally that is it. I mean, it's a city of back when I first saw this, it was like 45,000 people. Now it's 70,000 people that literally exists 1 week out of the year. And then it returns to this basically this lake bed in the middle of Nevada. And I was just mesmerized by that. I thought that was fascinating. Now, in all fairness, some of the build, like people are there a month ahead of time building, and then people are typically there 3 or 4 weeks afterwards, kind of making sure it's all returned to, the pristine land that it was before all these people descended on it. But that's still amazing that this city, literally with street signs, with like a laid out grid, with all of they have a medic camp, that like a hospital, which, by the way, one of the people in my camp once broke his thumb out there, and they literally had an x-ray machine to see if it was actually broken.
So, oh my goodness.
And and there's a fire department, and there's it's like a regular city, and I just found that fascinating. So I'm like, yeah, I got to do this. This is pretty cool. I contacted some friends of mine who live in Boulder, Colorado, because they would be into it. And sure enough, they're like, yeah, let's do this. We bought tickets. When my tickets came, I posted a picture of them on Facebook, and was contacted by a friend from high school that happened to be a Facebook friend too. And he was like, oh yeah, I've done it for several years. I camp with this camp. They're fabulous. You should come join us, kind of thing. And that's kind of how the whole ball got rolling. And I have literally camped with Whiskey and Dust since 2011, the first year I went. I don't go every year, but every time I go, I camp with them. And I just camped with them in 2013 and survived the rain apocalypse that we had out there, which I still have not watched any of the news articles about it, because I called home just to assure everyone I was fine. And it was just like, oh my God, it's all over the news, blah, blah, blah. Seen it on, the internet, but I will not read the articles because I guarantee you it was not as grim as they all made it out to be. We all had a wonderful time. It was different. I've never spent quite so much time in camp, but it was just a different experience. And it was still Burning Man, and we still got to do the burns, and it was lovely. And it was just, there's this saying out there that you don't always get the burn you want, you get the burn you need. And apparently we all needed just to chill out this year because that was the burn we got. We all kind of sat in for about 36 hours while everything dried out. And then everything was sort of back to normal.
That was one of my questions was it as bad as the drama in the news?
Not at all. This was definitely an instance where, and I was telling everybody that we had Wi-Fi in our camp, and she would turn it on every day for a little while. And, you would open everything up and you've got like 15 different messages and phone calls, and everybody's like panicked. And I'm like, really? Everything good? We don't even know that, with the exception of Chris Rock, walking out, and Diplo walking out of the, it was, no, the organization, I mean, there's a radio station, right? So they kept saying, just stay put, just stay in your camp until things dry out. The sun will come out, and sure enough, it did. And within 36 hours, everything was dry and we could all walk around. And it was literally just stay put while it's raining until things dry out, and we'll all be fine. And we were. As long as I've been going there, there's been these rumors of these things called fairy shrimp, which we all thought was just a joke and somebody made up. Nope, they actually exist. The city is actually built on a lake bed, a dry lake bed. And so apparently these little creatures, and everybody knows about them who lives there year round, because when the rainy season, they do come to the surface. But they're like these little things that are maybe 2 inches long. Most of them are about 2 inches long. And they look like a little shrimp with like kind of a little crab head. They're funny looking little creatures. But this year we got to actually see them, which was kind of cool.
Oh, wow.
So we got to party with the fairy shrimp.
So how many times have you gone?
I've gone 4 times. First time was in 2011. Of course, this year was 4th time.
Of the 4 times you've gone, what has been most surprising or least surprising about Burning Man?
Well, the art is always amazing. I mean, it's just mind-blowing what people, because it's all very large outdoor art. And I'm always just blown away by what people build and bring out there, or bring out there and build. It's just unbelievable. And the fact that people are willing to invest all the time and money to go out and have this there for a week, which is just crazy. And so the first year I went, my art was, I did Chinese brush painting on pieces of toilet paper and handed them out at the porta potties. Sounds ridiculous, but people loved it. But it was funny because people kept saying, well, I can't wipe my butt on this. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We burn the man and the temple, which are huge and beautiful. Wipe your butt on this, kind of thing. And then they would laugh and they would do it and whatever. But that, so it's just a little bit of everything out there. And the thing that amazes me is that trying to get my husband to go, he has no interest whatsoever. I keep saying there's something for everyone. Like one year I was out there and someone had brought out a Tesla coil that they put on the playa and did these demonstrations, these scientific demonstrations. And so it's not just art, it's a lot of art, but there's lots of learning and just community stuff. Really something for everyone out there.
Now, is there music and concerts and things like that?
So it's not concerts so much. At night, they do have camps that have that are music based, and they will have big kind of dance parties. It's not like going to a concert. It's not like Coachella, that other, that everybody always tries to like compare us to. It's not that, I can guarantee. But yes, there is music, and some camps are music based, and those are a lot of fun too. Just kind of pop into those every now and then. My focus is the art, but there's a little bit of something for everyone out.
Well, and explain what the burn means.
So the burn itself, well, they have burns sort of throughout the week with different pieces of art. One of my favorites was the second year I was there. They had a enormous, like 14 stories high Trojan horse that someone built. And they had an event like during the week where people physically drug this Trojan horse that was on wheels out from the edge of the city out into the middle of Playa. Playa is where most of the art kind of lives. There's the city, which is laid out in a grid, and then there's Playa, where most of the art lives. And so they had this Trojan horse, 300 or so people drag this thing out with ropes, and they set it on fire. And that was like Wednesday night or Thursday night. But the real burns are always Saturday night, the man burns, and Sunday, the temple burns. When the man burns, it's like a big party. There's fireworks, there's fire dancing before, and it's just like a big party. It's like a huge event. And then Sunday, it's more reserved when they burn the temple, because people do take items out there and put them in the temple to commemorate losses, whether it's a death or a divorce or whatever loss you are dealing with personally. It's a way to kind of set that free. You take it and you put it in the temple, and the idea is when the temple burns, it helps you heal. And I will say, because this year I had a lot of temple time, I had 3 different deaths I was dealing with since the last time I was there, and I did put stuff in the temple, and it really is very cathartic to sit. And the strange thing is to have all those people sitting there, and it is so quiet because everyone is kind of internally dealing with this as the temple burns. So it's a very different atmosphere. It's a very different purpose for a burn than the man burn. I will say that the man burned this year because of the rain and the mud and everything. We were delayed, and the man didn't burn until Monday. So he was the oldest man ever to burn, which was kind of cool. And the temple did not burn until Tuesday. But we got it all in, we got it done. And so that, the whole idea is this, that those burns are kind of fun and cathartic and just a way of letting go in different ways. And that's kind of like one of the things that, letting go is kind of one of the things I've always had trouble with. So when I kind of went out there the first year, it was a nice way to kind of walk away with that skill that I did not have before, which is nice.
Fabulous. Plus, I got to believe the tactile of placing something in the temple and then seeing it burn maybe helps your brain kind of like process it.
Absolutely. So one of the things, because my mother passed away from the last time I was there in 2016 until now, and my mom has been terribly, to a fault, supportive of my crazy Burning Man stuff, just like my husband has. So I feel very fortunate in that. But she has made me, she's a seamstress by trade, and she's made me lots of really cool costumes and outfits to take out there over the years. And so I got to kind of make something for her and put it in the temple. And it felt like it was kind of full circle. It felt nice that she had been a part of it all these years, and then she got to be a part of it this year. So
that's wonderful. Really great. Because I haven't gone to Burning Man or a big, huge festival like this, I'm always curious what things like, I don't know, you mentioned there's like a medical camp, but things like, food, water, are people well behaved? Like if I sent my daughter off to Burning Man, would I give her a big speech on how to take care of herself? I mean, what's your impression of, because you said it's like 45,000 people, right?
Well, it's up to 70 now on a regular basis. Yeah, I would let either one of my go. One has shown no interest, the other has shown an interest, and I'm happy for her to go if she would like. Burning Man, without getting into too much weeds on this, Burning Man has 10 principles, and one of them is community. And that really shined this year when we had the rains and we were all kind of pulling together to get through this, making sure everyone had enough food, water, and shelter. We didn't know how long we were going to be there and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's one of the things that they really excel at. It's a culture. It's not just unlike a lot of festivals and stuff, it has a history, it has a culture. And I think that that makes a big difference. Community is just like a huge part of it. And it really shined this year when we kind of were in a little bit of trouble and kind of needed to help each other out. And everybody did. So
How big are the individual camps?
it depends. Some of them are enormous. Some of them, and they're trying to actually scale back on this. They have what they call plug and play camps. This is where all the like tech people from California used to come in and, basically have everything brought in for them, because it is a pack in, pack out situation. You have to take everything you need for the week, for the entire week in with you. And it's no trace. You have to bring everything, trash and everything out with you. Some camps are very good at that kind of stuff. And then there are these plug and play camps that basically you pay a lot of money and they do a lot of that stuff for you. The camp that I'm with, Whiskey and Dust, has really good administration, and we're about 50 people. So we're not a huge camp, but we're not one of the smaller ones either. We're kind of mid-sized camp. The advantage to being in a camp is you have a lot of infrastructure that you might not have otherwise. We have showers, we have a kitchen, we have, a bar, we have all the essentials of life.
The essentials, yes.
Exactly, that are part of the camp. So that's something that you don't have to worry about individually. So that's very helpful too.
Excellent.
But people go do it all themselves, which, when we thought we were going to do it that way initially, and boy, am I glad we didn't. It's nice having that kind of community and camaraderie and just kind of, the stuff that you can know that's going to be there. That's nice.
Can a person go out for just a day or a few days, or?
You buy your ticket and it's an entrance and an exit, and you do not get to come but there are people, especially people who live in San Francisco, who only are somewhere close by, Reno or San Francisco, who only go out for the weekend, for a long weekend.
Okay. How much is a ticket?
This year, the ticket itself was $475. That just gets you in the gate. That's basically all that does. And then you have to buy a separate car pass. And I think the car pass was $140 this year.
What's the typical age range?
There are people who've been going there for so long, they they're old. But there's also a kids there. People do bring their kids. They have a certain area of the city that's called Kidsville, and you bring your kids, and it's kind of like an area that, again, it's a community. It's a bunch of camps, but they kind of come together to have entertainment for the kids and stuff like that. But the kids still go out on the playa and see the big art and all that stuff too, but it's a little more protected, a little more insular.
Like, what kind of land size is?
When they start building the city, they put up what they call the trash fence, which is supposed to enclose the entire city, encloses the city and the playa where all the art is. And the idea for the trash fence is literally to keep any trash from the city or the playa blowing out into the environment. That is typically 9 miles by 9 miles diameter. So it's big. It's really big. Yeah. And you sort of have to have a bicycle out there just to kind of get around.
I was about to ask you about outfits. Is outfits part of playa life too?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Most people do a lot of costuming out there. I know people who have had 4 changes a day out there with their costumes, which
oh my goodness,
seems crazy. That's a lot of stuff to carry out there, right? Yes, and people there's this stuff called L wire, is run off of a battery or a solar pack or whatever, and you can literally decorate anything with this L wire, and you can make it go in any shape. I have a really cool coat that I did this year that had the man on the back, and it had a peace sign and a heart on the front. And it was just designed to be seen at night, but it's a piece of art, it's and people do that all the time out there, just kind of create art in their costuming as well. The very first year I went, my biggest art piece costume was a dress that I designed and had my mother help me put together. And it was made entirely out of those do not remove under penalty of law mattress tags. That for some weird reason, which I did not know until 2011 when I made this dress, I had been collecting those dumb things for years. Back when I was in college, I was like ripping those stupid things off and saving them. So I had a whole box of them, and I made this dress out of those tags. So it's just clever. It's just fun, crazy, cute stuff like that people like to do.
And then whatever is built gets burnt down?
Well, I would say probably not everything there, because there are pieces out there there's a lot of large structures. There's even like a fair amount of large mosaic type tile or glass structures. You do not have to burn your art when you go out there. You can take it home with you, and actually an awful lot of the art that has been at Burning Man and still exists lives either at a university or a city purchases it or something like that. But there is a fair amount of art that has been out there that exists. The man always burns, the temple always burns, and there's usually 2 or 3 other large structures that burn during the week. And you're welcome to burn yours if you want, but you have to be permitted and yada, yada, yada. So I would say probably less than 10% ever gets burned.
Okay. Because that is a lot of trash and ash and stuff like that to be dealt with.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are procedures. I mean, you have to cover the ground before you put your art down so that it can then be like picked up, and any of the burn material is kind of removed from the playa. And they have become more and more cognizant of environmental issues like that now.
I gotta believe the night sky, the stars are just tremendous.
It's stunning. Now, I will say that because there are the city lights up at night. There's a lot.
Sure.
But on Thursdays, they typically have what they call dark sky night. And so they do encourage people to turn off as many lights as possible in order to kind of get a sense of, because I can imagine with, not Burning Man not being there, it might be insane out there, the amount of stars you can see. And again, so they have kind of been mitigating that a little bit too, but you do sort of have to have some lights on, otherwise it's just dark and people will get run over out there. So
it's fascinating. So
it's unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. And to be perfectly honest, each year is different. It's a completely different experience each year. I can understand why people go every year. I mean, I selfishly don't, because I have things in my life.
Well, I wanted to take a little bit of a step back and talk about your creativity and your curiosity. You mentioned your mom. Is she someone that has encouraged you to follow your curiosity when it leads to things like photography and Burning Man and things like that?
I mean, I took a photography class in high school, but I never dreamt I would actually be kind of in the thick of photography. But I joined the Army, and I went to school to do Morse code interception and interpretation, and sitting around at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, waiting on I don't know, it's like a super secret security clearance to come through so I could actually do this work. It kept taking longer and longer. And finally they were like, you can sit around and wait on this. It may happen, it may not, or we can change MOSs for you. And I'm like, well, what do you got? And one of the things they threw out for me was photography. And I was like, I'll take it. And so the next thing I knew, I was heading to Lowry Air Force Base, where the photography school is for all of the services. It was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, honestly. And so that's how I actually got into photography. Seriously. So, and I've been doing it in different capacities ever since. I do it for my own personal stuff. I do it for weddings. I've done it for events. I've done it for media purposes. I've done it for magazines. It was a great opportunity that I didn't even really realize at the time that I was getting. And it's something that I enjoy and has really been good.
I know you told me this once before, but why did you join the Army?
Working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and trying to go to community college. That's why. It was like, there's got to be a better way than this. And so I thought I'll just take a few. And a friend of mine, I joined with a friend of mine. It was his idea. And he was like, oh my God, they, pay for school when you get out. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So that was pretty much why I joined. It was a brilliant move on my part. And I did. It ended up paying for the rest of my undergrad and all but the last year of law school, which was pretty incredible. I have to say, being in the Army was very good for me. It gave me a lot of focus. It gave me a lot of self-esteem. I got to see places I probably would have never seen. It was all around a very good deal. I'm not the kind of person who's like in it for life, but for the time I was there, fantastic.
So you got your law degree?
I do. Yeah, I graduated from Northwestern with a JD, and I actually practiced law for 7 years. I did litigation. I did enforcement and litigation for the Federal Election Commission, which is a whole nother ball of wax. That was crazy. That was nutty, waking up and seeing your case on the cover of the Washington Post and nonsense like that. That was 7 years, and I left and I did not look back. That was like a serious burnout thing. It was fascinating while I was doing it. It was exhausting. I know people who are still there, and I don't know how they do it. I don't regret any experience, and I don't regret that one either. So it was good. And 7 years, I paid off my law school loans. And
well, I know in the past you volunteered at polling places for election days. So now it makes sense that you have very detailed inner knowledge of our election system.
I solidly believe in our democracy, and that is my contribution, is working the polls, and I still do it, and I will be doing it next month. It's a very long day. Again, I feel so good when I'm doing that, and it's nice to kind of know that you're a part of the process and you're to your country somehow. So I do enjoy working the polls for elections.
Well, should we dive into our questions? These are the only questions we gave you in advance.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite questions, and that is, if you could go back to your younger self and tell that person something, what would you say?
I'm not sure I would. I don't have a lot of regrets in life. I'm not sure I would change much. But I do think that I would say to my younger self, relax and follow the path and trust yourself. And it's about that cliche. It's not about the destination. It's about the journey. I do believe that is absolutely true. And my problem is I have always been a type A personality, struggling really hard to be a B+. I think I would say to my younger self, it's okay to let go every now and then. You do not have to have 110%. It's okay. Because it took me a long time to get to that point. Actually, Burning Man was pretty responsible for me finally deciding it was okay to let go of stuff. And the whole trapeze thing. Oh, you learn to let go in trapeze.
Would younger Tonda go to Burning Man? Do you wish you would have gone earlier?
No, I don't wish because I wouldn't have been ready for it. I don't think. Yeah. But younger me would have gone. Yeah. 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 Younger me would have done pretty much everything I've done, given the opportunity. It's all about the opportunity. Honestly, so the whole trapeze thing came about because of Burning Man. I learned that our camp did aerial arts, and I was like, well, I'll be darned if this is the type A in me coming out again. I was like, I'll be darned if I'm going to go to this camp that has aerial arts and not participate. So I signed up with Trapeze School New York here in DC to do a lyra class, because I thought, okay, that's nice and safe. It's not that far off the ground. I'll be fine. 2 weeks before the class was supposed to start, called me and said, oh, the instructor dislocated her shoulder. It's going to be probably months before we do the class. We can refund your money, or we can put you in another class. And I'm like, okay, I'll do flying trapeze. And then 7 years later, I was still doing it.
So what are you currently reading, watching, or listening to right now that you're binging?
Well, my husband and I are catching up on Murders in the Building, because we're behind on that. I did binge watch season 3 of The Morning Show only because I found out that John Hamm was on this season. And I love him. And so now don't tell me the latest if you watch it, but that I binge watched pretty much all of it up to that point. And I have a tendency to be a binge watcher. I like, they drop a season and I will the whole thing all at once kind of thing. I am reading a book called Sleepyhead, The Neuroscience of Sleep. And the reason I'm reading this is because I've lived my whole life with sleep disorder issues, but I also desperately want to get into this neuroscience class out at George Mason University. By the way, when you're 60 years old, if you live in the state of Virginia, You can audit classes at any state university for it's the best deal ever.
Whoa, for free.
I know, right?
Wow.
And so I started doing that. Well, I turned 60 in October last year. Took my first classes in spring of this year. I took a class on just dive into the deep end. I took a upper level psychology class on death, dying, and grief, which was fascinating. And I needed it desperately because I was dealing with, my mother's death and a couple of other important deaths in my life. And so it was a great class, personally very fulfilling. So this semester, I was going to take this neuroscience class, and it turned out I couldn't because I was going to Burning Man and we were starting classes in August, blah, blah, blah. And I also had to get a waiver from the professor because I've never had a neuroscience class in my life, right? But this one is sleep and circadian rhythms. So it was like perfect for me. It was like, this is what I want to learn about. So I'm writing my request for the waiver for the next time that the class is taught. I figured I at least should be able to talk a little bit about it. So I'm reading this book on it. So that's what I'm reading.
B+, Tonda, what do you do to relax? That's not work or taking care of your family.
Well, I laughed when I saw that question too, because it said, what did it say? Not work or taking care of your family or a side hustle.
Side hustle.
And I thought,
yep.
Geez, my whole life is a side hustle. I'm not sure what the answer to that is. Well, I have right here in the room with me, as a matter of fact, over 700 vinyl albums. I'm kind of a nerd. I collect, and I listen to music a lot. I sit in this room and I listen to music a lot, writing and art, both doing it and just going to see it.
Is there something you like to cook or eat or drink when you've had a long day and you want to just relax?
Yes. We have an outdoor pizza oven, which I adore. My husband built it just because he needed something to do. So we make homemade pizza a lot. And one of my favorite things is to make what we call leftover pizza. I basically open the fridge and find stuff to make pizza with. Because if you think about it, pizza is literally a crust, a sauce, some sort of topping, and then some gooey something to hold it all together. So,
sure.
So you can get pretty darn creative with whatever you have in your fridge and make these pizzas that would never wind up on the P's menu, but are surprisingly good and interesting. So I like doing that. That's a lot of fun. I like making up cocktails, and I marry that a lot. And you've probably seen me do that on
Facebook. Yeah, with your albums.
Yes. So I marry that a lot with music. I'll pick an album cover that somehow relates to a cocktail that I come up with, and just kind of like write up a thing about it. And it may be like, a trivia piece about the album, or it may be some detailed information about the cocktail, whatever. And that's something I enjoy doing.
Tonda, do you have a friend that you think we should all meet?
Oh, yes. You know her already, but I would love for you to share with the world one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Vero Otfine.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I'm always in awe of her. She's amazing. She had like this travel business that she created. She's a playwright who like her stuff. You may even, are you in a writing
yes
group with her?
She's in the infamous writing group, Missy.
The infamous writing group that I wish I was in. Maybe I would actually get something published if I was in that writing group. Man. But yes, I adore this woman. I think she's so talented, so incredible.
Very
I had
talented.
the pleasure of being on the board with her with the West
her
Potomac.
Her kids were in theater too.
Yeah. Very talented. Did you come to Tales from the Nest?
Yes, I did.
That was the most amazing experience. So what we did, Missy, is we took 6 of Vero's short plays that she had written and produced them and showed them. It was the most unique experience. We showed them in a store, a
consignment store.
It's called Evolution Home. And the woman who owns Evolution Home also has a kid who was in the theater department. So there's like that tie. But we basically kind of came up with this weird concept. Well, this is one too many and I had one night, and we came up with this crazy concept to do a kind of a conglomeration, a marriage of local artists, local businesses, and we gave all the money to Alice's kids that was raised from it. And we literally did these 6 plays, and we would go to rehearsals because it was done in this store that had like furniture for sale and stuff. And we would go to rehearsal every night. It was, we used to laugh, and I used to call it it was almost like like every night the set was different. It was like it was like running a ad hoc set kind of thing every night, because pieces would be sold that we had used the night before.
Yep.
So, but it was really fun and interesting. We had a great time with it, and we did it. I think it was February of 2019. So it was right before, it was like a year before COVID. And then we were going to do another one. And then of course we all know what happened, everything.
Yeah.
But she and I were actually just talking about the other day that we need to do another one, because we had so much fun doing that.
It was really cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Because as an audience, we would just sort of get up and move to
right.
another
So
part of the store, and then they do the next play.
We would have sets in different parts of the store, and the audience moved from place to place. Cool. Yeah. It was very fun. It was very fun. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So last question, is there a cause or organization that you would like to specifically highlight so we could direct our numerous listeners to?
Yes.
I think it's important to to identify those things that are personal to you to give to. That's really important to me. I mean, I'm involved in, I still give money to 52 Frames, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah. So I actually started with 52 Frames back in 2015.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I saw Joseph do a TED Talk, which is how I learned about it, and kind of became involved in it, and then helped him with administrative stuff for the first couple of years that I was doing it. And then,
oh, wow. I didn't realize you were that involved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I just talked to him this week. It felt so good to hear him, especially
because he's in Israel.
He's in Israel, right? And everything that's going on over there, I just had to reach out to him, and it was good to hear him. But yeah, I still give money to because it's a great organization. Oh my God, I think it's brilliant. When I first started, we were less than 300 people.
Yeah, now it's thousands.
I know. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
So he's been very successful with it. And I think it's an amazing, I learned a ton was doing it. So, but I think that you need to identify, what's important to you in your life and give to that.
It is a little hard because there's so many places in the local community, in our country, and across the world that need help and assistance, and so much.
And local is important too.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Oh my God, we've gone way over. I'm sorry. I'm such
That's okay. That's okay. But thank you for your faith in us to join us on this journey. All right. What a great conversation. Missy, what did you find interesting about Tonda?
She is a fascinating person. Everything was interesting. I just enjoyed learning about Burning Man. I've never even looked into it. I've never even considered going. So it was very informational. She had to be very brave to do something like that. Like she had to be brave to learn to become a trapeze artist. Again, something I probably would never do. And I enjoyed learning about the work that she's done with the Smithsonian and 52 Frames, which you are a part of. All very interesting. She was an interesting person to talk to. I don't think she's the type of person that would sit still either. So I appreciate that.
Yep.
Very fascinating.
But very, very generous. Not just with with all her interests and all the people who are interested in her interests. She's very generous with her time.
Absolutely. I think she did talk about some of the volunteer stuff that she does in the community. And
when her one or both daughters were on swim team, she was the team photographer, and so certainly taking a lot of her creative skills and using them for for good in the community.
That's nice to hear about people like that. I always forget to take pictures at sporting events. So I always need a friend like that who's like, don't worry, I got pictures of your kid. So
find us at facebook.com/YSMMF podcast and Instagram at YSMMF podcast for episode announcements. Thanks.